The Vampire Chronicles, Part 1, a short story by Maverick T. The air smelled of blood as I found my way through an unlocked door of the building. Once I got inside, the scene I encountered was gruesome. There were bodies mangled, ripped apart, drained of all of its blood, lifeless along the ground. If only I had gotten there sooner, none of this would have happened. Suddenly, a shaking sound was coming from somewhere, almost banging, as if somebody was trapped, trying to get out. I looked, and I saw it was coming from behind a door. I readily unsheathed my sword just in case, ready to strike. Then pleading came from behind the door. I slowly turned the knob, believing it was a vampire. But no, it was a woman with fair skin, brown hair, and frightened to death of what had happened. I said, "Are you okay?" She tried to speak, but fear gripped her completely. So I reached out to grab her hand and pull her out of the closet she had herself in. She wasn't sure she could trust me. If you had just been attacked by blood-sucking vampires hell-bent on killing you, who had happened to appear to be human only to be vicious monsters, I would be scared shitless too. I asked what her name was. She said, "Caitlin." She was the office manager of this business complex. I said, "What happened here? Did you see who it was?" She was too much in shock to remember and started to cry. It was then I knew this was going to be a long night. After a while, she finally stopped crying, enough to tell me what happened. She said they came a couple hours earlier and started at the bottom floor of the building. Then they worked their way up, killing every employee in sight. She told me the things that attacked them all had a tattoo on their hand, with an upside-down cross within a circle. As soon as she told me, I knew who the vampires were, who attacked her. I had been hunting their tails for weeks. The Eternal Ones, that's what the underworld called them, were a very violent, sadistic group who believed in one thing and only one thing: enslaving the human race and killing off the face of the earth. I should know, because I used to be one of them. It was a couple years ago, back when I first turned, not knowing how to navigate this new life I didn't know, choose, or want, but was forced upon me. I got chased down one night, walking home by a hospital. I knew all the shortcuts near my home, so I decided to take one this night. Then, out of nowhere, they appeared, almost out of thin air. 7, or maybe 8, of them led by their leader, a psychotic vampire named Lucian, or as the vampire world calls him, the Dark Lord. Immediately, he ordered them to attack me, but he didn't bet on how much of a fighter I was. I took martial arts at the local YMCA for about 4 years in case something like this had happened. It definitely helped at that moment. Surprised by my skills, Lucian decided, instead of killing me, that he would make me one of them against my own will. He instantly sunk his teeth into me. The pain that went through me was beyond anything I could describe. Like I was dying. Lucian spoke. "You now belong to me. I made you. I am now your master. You do as I say, or the result will be your death." I was in so much pain. I barely heard anything he said. The only thing I thought was about escaping. We were in an alleyway beside the hospital, and I knew one of the doors that was on the side was normally unlocked. So I looked up at 2 of Lucian's men and saw an opening. So I used my legs to trip them and darted for the door. I could hear Lucian order his men, "You idiots! Get him! He's getting away!" I made it safely inside. I knew the hospital and some of the staff here, seeing I would volunteer here frequently. As soon as the people saw me, they were horrified at the appearance of my shirt. It was drenched in blood, and I had 2 holes on the other side of my neck. I guess it wasn't much of a fashion statement. A nurse came to help me. I didn't know her, but she seemed young, possibly a resident. She started to take a look at me to see where I was injured, and she said, "What happened? Did someone do this to you?" At that moment, I didn't know what was happening. All of a sudden, I could hear her heart beating clear as day, and I could see the vein in her neck throbbing. It was like I was in a trance. All I could focus on was her neck. Then she looked dead at me, in front of me, staring at me, asking if I understood what she was saying. Then it happened. Fangs grew from my mouth on instinct, and I latched onto her neck. The horror I had on my face, once I realized what I had done, it made me sick to my stomach. I looked at the girl's body that I just drank blood from, lifeless on the ground, drenched in blood. Then panic set in. I had to get out of the hospital before anyone saw me, so I looked around to see if anyone was watching. I took one last look at her and felt guilty just leaving her like that. I felt conflicted about what to do. Then someone from the other side of the hallway looked at me, and then at the nurse's body. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" I sprinted to the nearest exit as quickly as I could, not looking back, running down the crowded streets of New York City, believing I could never come back. After the incident, I fled the country and left New York, knowing I was wanted for murder. Possibly for the next few years, I started traveling, going as far as Europe to Asia. Along the way, I had gotten word of Lucien and some of his dealings in the country. I traveled, so I decided to follow his crew's trail, set on revenge for what he made me into and what the monster that I thought I became. However, as the years went by, I found out how to use and control my vampire abilities, and made a vow to myself that what happened in New York would never happen again. So I got creative, and I found other sources of blood, so I wouldn't feed on humans, and promised that I would take down any vampire associated with Lucien, as well as those who hurt humans. Now here I was 6 years later in this city I said I would never come back to. Yet Lucien's trail led me back here in the most unexpected way. I looked over at Caitlin, the office manager, whom I had found as the only survivor of Lucien's crew attack. I told her we had to get out of the building to somewhere safe before anything else happened. So I helped her up and headed to the nearest exit. She turned to look at me as we were walking and said, "Who are you?" It took me by surprise. I almost didn't notice, so I looked at her, knowing I possibly shouldn't say too much to someone I hardly knew. I had trust issues for obvious reasons, so I said, "A friend." She gave me a look of confusion, then relief, so I guess she made a decision in her mind that as long as I didn't drink her blood, I was okay. I guess it was a start. We made it to an alleyway where I had my motorcycle parked. I didn't have an extra helmet, so I gave her mine. "Here, I'm okay without it," I said. She looked at me, still confused as to whom I was and why I was helping her. I said, "How far do you live?" She said, "Midtown, Bell Tower condos." Midtown in New York City was where some of the wealthy lived, so I assumed she was doing pretty well for herself. So I said, "Let's go." The moment we made it to her building, I parked my bike at the front entrance. She took off her helmet and gave it back. As she started to leave, she then stopped and turned around and said, "Thank you for helping me get home. I didn't catch your name." I hesitated to tell her. I keep a very private life and didn't get close to people because of what I was in the incident from 6 years ago. But I thought the least I could do for her was tell her my name. So I said, "It's Gabriel." She smiled and said, "Thank you, Gabriel." She just stood there for a few seconds and then said, "How do I reach you if those guys come back?" I looked at her and I saw the concern that she believed that they would. So I said, "They probably think you're dead, so chances are low that they will come back. But they could attack other places, so keep an eye open." She nodded and said, "Will do." I made it back to my loft downtown and parked my bike in the garage. I walked through my front door and found an envelope sitting on the table in the living room with my name on it in red letters. I opened it and I saw Lucien. This can't be good.